All right, good afternoon or good morning or good evening, wherever you may be around the world. I am Marcus Holmes, HR Passion Guy, and you have tuned in for Passion Fridays. And what a great Passion Friday we have in store for you. So drop in the comments wherever you are, what the temperature is like there. I'm on the northwest side of Detroit, and it is approaching 40 degrees. I'm hoping it gets there pretty quickly. It's a little cold, but hey, I'm in the Midwest, so we are no strangers to cold. How about you? Where are you? Drop in the comments where you are and what the temperature is like there. We are excited to have you on all of our platforms. We are live through Restream on YouTube events, on Twitch TV, on Facebook, and primarily today on LinkedIn Live. And we want you to just shout out whichever platform you're on, just drop in the comments where you are and that you're enjoying this great Friday. All right, I see folks are joining us on the Facebook and YouTube. Thank you very much. And so drop in the comments. You're dropping in the comments now, hopefully, where you are and what the temperature is like. Also drop in the comments, what career are you currently in? What do you currently do as a part of your vocation today? And maybe if you want that to change tomorrow or starting today, you might find some great nuggets through our guest who is joining us today, who is a career concierge. And so we'll have him come in just a moment and give you a chance, give you a moment to click share and tag some other folks that might join this discussion. All right, great. Give you the opportunity to drop that in the comments, just checking the comments. I'm so pleased today to have with me Craig Turner. As I stated, I gave him a name. I'm sure that's his name. He is a career concierge. He has served as Director of Diversity and Inclusion Programs at the University of Toledo, but he is a career advisor. So he has done recruiting, career advising. He's done quite a bit of things, and we'll talk a little bit about that with him today. And I am excited to have him here to share with you about his passion, and maybe it will ignite your passion some. So we are grateful to have Craig Turner with us. Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me, sir.
Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. I kind of chuckled when I said career concierge, but that is part of what you do, correct?
Yes.
Very good. And so I mentioned that you were once the Director of Diversity and Inclusion programs there at the University of Toledo, and you also went to school there. So talk us a little bit about your journey through school and then now to your current career. I think it will be helpful for our viewers to hear that you've walked an interesting path to career concierge. So share with us.
Well, hopefully I won't be on my soapbox too long with this one, but it's a real interesting journey. It started, well, of course, after graduating high school, I did go to college like the first year or so, back in a long time ago. But during that time in college, first starting out, I wasn't taking it seriously, not really going to class, not applying myself, just really performing poorly, during that time. So eventually, the light did turn on probably around the age of 26. I decided I want to go back to school. I need to do this because I'm getting older. I'm still living at home. I've got this part-time job, couldn't afford to support my own self. So I had to stay at home with mom and dad, which was a blessing. But I knew I needed to had to step up to the plate a little bit more than what I was doing. So I did decide to take it seriously from that point to go back and, got my associate's degree in 1998 and then moved on to get my bachelor's degree in 2000. And during that time, that was hard work, and it did pay off because eventually I did start to acquire gainful employment. And I said to myself, it's funny that when I got my degree at 30 years old, in the year 2000, my bachelor's degree, that I would never go back to school for anyone. I don't care. I'm done with college. This is it. One thing I learned is to never say never, because what I'm doing now and the things that I prepped me beforehand to get to, where I am now was necessary. So I did acquire my first quote full-time grown-up person job with a company called Owens Corning. That was my first quote real gig, full-time job. Worked there for about 6.5 years, done a lot of great stuff there, a really great learning process. And what was like a shift for me is during that time, probably around 2004, I was probably about 4 years into the company, 4 or 5 years into the company there. And I got involved with campus recruiting. That was not my full-time job. That was kind of my extracurricular activity that I was doing. And I remember—
Let me jump in and ask you, what was your full-time job? When you
my full-time job, I'm sorry, I was a customer service rep. Okay. So I was customer service. That was the job that they were paying me to do, but I volunteered to serve as a campus recruiter, or at least be on the team recruiting. So that involved going to college campuses. Of course, I was signed to the University of Toledo, which that's where, I got my degrees from. And from that point, I was there attending the job fairs, attending various career development events. And then I remember being at the first job fair around 2004. And it's something just like inside of me, just a spark. I said, oh, this is it.
Wow.
I knew that the energy that I felt from the students and working with them to help them to develop and to grow and to flourish. That's something that was conceived within me. So during that point, I still stayed connected to the university, volunteering, coming in, to help with resumes, to help with mock interviews, to help with all of those career development exercises. And I remember one day, probably around 2005 or so, I was leaving the university. I was talking to one of the professors, and the lady now who is my boss, I said, I really enjoyed this. I said, I can see myself doing this full time. I was like, wow, okay. And then we all laughed, say, well, you never know. So years had gone by, still staying in touch with, the university, with my contacts there. And around 2012, the career advisor position had came open. But since then, I had left Owens Corning and went to another company as a HR person, a recruiter. So I was more in your line of work. So I did that for a number of years, recruitment, but still staying connected to the university. I'm going somewhere with this one. You'll see where I'm going in a minute.
Okay.
So around the later part of 2012, this position came open. I interviewed for it. And I remember it was probably like the week of Thanksgiving is when I interviewed for it. But the week before that, one of my colleagues at my other company, HCR Vandercare, she said, hey, Craig, there's this career advisor position. You should apply for it. And then I texted her back, haha, you're trying to get rid of me or something? We're just kind of laughing about it. But I applied for it. I interviewed for it, and here I am. And since being at the University of Toledo, it's been a blessing. Doors have opened. I have a wonderful support system through my boss and through other leaders there at the university. Doors have opened, gone on to get another degree, master's degree of education in 2018. And they're pushing for a PhD, but I don't know about that one yet.
So let me double back and ask you about, you said something inside of you, that spark happened. And it sounds like that spark kept you connected to the work that brought that spark to happening, that you can envision yourself doing. So what would you say to viewers about visioning yourself in a role where you say what you said, this is something I could see myself doing? How important is that to connect that spark to that visioning?
That's important for any role, anything that you feel passionate about. You will go all out for it. You don't find yourself getting tired of it. It keeps you energized because you see the results, even though it gets tough sometimes, but you still have that inner spark within to keep you going, because this is something that you want to do, or you feel that this is what your purpose is to do. So it's something that I think it can relate to any career path or anything that you want to do as it relates to your life or your career.
Yeah. And what would you say about this work that you're doing, career advising or career concierge? What fills you up most, Craig, about your current work?
Honestly, it's when I see students come in, like the freshman year or the sophomore year, they're very, if you will, green or really shy or don't have that confidence. And you see them come out of their shell, their sophomore, their junior year. You see them gaining more confidence, really more animated and believing that they can achieve that. And then at the end of the day, when they come into our office or they call me or they email me or text me, say, Mr. Turner, I got the job. Thank you. I have the interview. Thank you. So that's the joy that keeps myself and my colleagues going, is no matter how crazy it gets around there sometimes. But when the students come in to say thank you, when they come in to say that what the advice that you gave me, what you told me to do works.
Yeah. And speaking of advice, I want you to share some of that advice with some people that might be listening about, okay, let's say that you have begun your exploration of the career that you think you want. I always start there when I'm talking to people because people typically have an idea of the path
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes close themselves off from other opportunities or haven't really looked at a strengths area that might lead them down a different path, right? But let's say a person believes that they know their career path and they're ready to make that move, take that lead, next step to getting ready to leave the University of Toledo or some other college or institution of higher learning, and they believe that they're ready. How do you advise them? What advice do you give to them?
Well, the first thing I tell them, they have to be realistic in this whole thing. They don't realize that, a career path is not a straight line.
Mm-hmm.
I can say that for myself. A lot of times now, the things that I was doing in my 20s and 30s, I'm not doing. I'm doing something totally different now. So if you think that your career path is going to be just a straight shot, you're mistaken. 99% of the times it's not. It will cause you to have to kind of go around. You have to navigate. You have to be flexible. Sometimes maybe taking a position, maybe it's not wasn't the one that you really love, but you have to look at the fact that maybe where it can take you. Maybe there's a company. I was just talking to a student this morning, and there's a position that he's being offered. It's not his first choice position, but if he's to move up to get his foot in the door, okay. So, and some people think that's settling. I don't believe that's settling. Sometimes you have to navigate through it. I always say that, if you can't go through the front door, try a side door, try a cross space, try a back door. And I think that's the way with the career a lot of times. It's not a straight path. So you have to be adaptable, be flexible, and be willing to maybe take on different responsibilities or jobs that you wouldn't normally think you would want to do or could do. And it really does open the doors. It has for me. I'm not, I can't speak for everyone, but I just can speak on my experience that it's not a straight line all the time. So you have to be flexible and be willing to navigate and look at the big picture. Don't look at just today. Well, I'm only making this amount of money, or look at the big picture. Look at, okay, the job has benefits. It has development programs. It has really great training, things like that, educational, assistance, things like that that you need to look at.
Okay. And so when you're talking with these students, what themes continue to surface in your discussions with them? So you're talking to them about, it's not a straight line. And I think that's very important and a great piece of advice. You do often navigate and go lateral and go left where you thought you'd go right. What other types of things continue to surface among your conversations with students?
Well, the thing too is they want to be in a position or in a company where they can grow. They don't want to stay in the same job for, 10, 20, 30 years like our parents did, and they were content with that. This generation, they call them the millennials or the Generation Z, they want to see kind of a plan or a path that they can go. Mm-hmm. So I hear that a lot. If I take this job, where am I going to be in 3 years? Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's good, but sometimes I think that, that is not always healthy because you don't want to get into the attitude of entitlement. I have a master's degree. I've been here for 3 years. I should be promoted to the next job. No, no, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work. That's the reality. And, and when working with our students, I always keep it 100 with them. I don't shuck and jive. I just tell them the truth. Mm-hmm. To help them, to let them know the reality of careers. There's going to be times you might get your feelings hurt. Mm-hmm. You're going for that job, but letting them see that, being realistic about their expectations, mm-hmm. and they're looking for a path. So I see that a lot, want to know a path, or sometimes even what they want to do. They say, well, I think I want to do accounting, or I think I want to do finance. And which one should I do? I don't tell them directly what to do, but I lay out specific jobs and career paths that you could go into if you chose accounting or if you chose finance or HR or whatever. But
Mhm.
of course, there's still no guarantees all the time.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's great advice.
Mhm.
And right before we take a quick break, I had mentioned earlier that you served as Director of Diversity and Inclusion Programs for the school. Um, Tell us a little bit about what that journey is like, and now in the current environment, how do you see that work as being relevant to your students going out into the real world, per
Mhm.
se?
Well, my role as director of diversity and inclusion, I did that role for 2 years. I'm no longer in that function at this time.
Mhm.
I was responsible for the College of Business. Each college on campus had a director of diversity and inclusion within their office. And our role essentially was we were the eyes, the ears, the voice for that particular college, whether you're in business or engineering or education, to ensure that, we are maintaining or adhering to the mission of the university as a whole.
Mhm.
But the things I encounter a lot, though, with University of Toledo being a predominantly white institution, although there is a lot of diversity because we have a very large international population, there's
Mhm.
still, we're still at the minority piece, the people of color and the international students.
Mhm.
And just from my point, from what I see, that we've done some good things, making sure that programs are available, that, there's equity, there's inclusion, belonging, all of those things are in place, but there's still a lot to be done as far
Mhm.
as getting our students, our students of color, to be engaged, to know that they have somewhere that they can go, they can talk to someone, that they're not in this thing by themselves.
Mhm.
So we kept we did our due diligence as to making ourselves known to the public at the University of Toledo, that we have a young men's group, Brothers on the Rise group, which was the men of color that are faculty and staff members. We want to put our arms around the young men of color here on campus, let them know that, whatever you need, we're here to support, whether it's mentorship, help with academics, whatever that situation is that they have a resource that they can tap into, but they have to do it. We can't force you. And sometimes, dealing with certain demographics or generation, you almost have to compel them. And,
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
some of the things that we've worked on, getting them to show up to the meetings and get engaged, but we're still persevering through that to make sure that they know that, there is a presence here on the campus.
So Men on the Rise, you
Brothers on
kind
the
of
Rise, yes.
provide mentorship for students that are there, that are Black, Indigenous, people of color, or just
Yeah,
mostly?
so African American, Hispanic, people of color.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just one group. We have TAW, which is another organization that deals with the women, and we have Hispanic groups. When you look at diversity, we try to cover every component of that.
Mhm.
And there's support groups or programming, whatever that is for that. So we really try our hardest to make sure that we don't leave any bases uncovered.
Okay. And so in your role, do you also develop alliances with businesses in the area as stakeholders, or is there someone else in the organization that does that part?
Yes, we do. Part of my role, and then with me being a career advisor, I also did employer relations. So I'm not just working with students, but I'm working with the employers, getting them on campus to recruit. And a lot of those employers have come back to me, Greg, we really need to reinvent ourselves. We need to really look at our diversity mission for our company. How can we as a company partner more with your university as to programming? How can we support you? I've had numerous companies call me or setting up meetings to, see what is it that we need, and I present that to my colleagues at the various, other parts of the campus, and they, whether it's funding, whether it's programming, sponsorship, whatever that is, we've had a lot of companies who have come in or calling or wanting to see how they can better engage with us. So yes.
Yes. And we're going to go to break. We're talking with Craig Turner, who is a career concierge. So if you have questions, you can drop them in the comments on any of the platforms. I'm watching them all, and we will try to respond to those questions. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about that employer relationship and whether or not you get any feedback that might be useful for our viewers and others that might come across this video about things that people should do going into interviews, interview techniques, things about their career and competencies that they might highlight. So we'll be right back. It's Passion Fridays.
All right.
Who do you know that's looking to buy or sell real estate? I'm Enrico White, a North Carolina realtor with Keller Williams Premier. The Charlotte, North Carolina market is one of the top 10 markets in the country. Nearly 100 people per day moving to the Charlotte area, and you need a realtor. Not in North Carolina? I would love to refer a realtor to you wherever you are. Feel free to reach out to me, 980-777-9157, or look at my website, enricowhite.kw.com. Realtor Rico to your rescue.
So if you're thinking about going to the Charlotte, North Carolina area, or you need a realtor, Enrico White is the person, and you can see him on LinkedIn or any of the other platforms as well as his website. We're talking today on Passion Fridays about career passion with Craig Turner, who is a career concierge. And just before that small break, we were talking about employer relations. And so in your discussions with employers who, have been telling you, hey, we need more diversity and equity, inclusion, and belonging in our processes and maybe in our curriculums and embedded in our centers of excellence, what feedback, if they're providing you any, about candidates and students and people that are interviewing that you could share here?
Well, on behalf of the College of Business, holistically, that's what I deal with primarily. That's where I am. I am proud to say that our students perform exceptionally in interviews. This is something that we train them on diligently as far as how to interview, how to, construct a resume, the follow-up process from A to Z. But there's still always room for improvement. We don't want to just take everything, think that we have all the answers, but, they also make sure that they comment on making sure that our students are prepared as far as doing their research on the company. So when you're going into a company, you haven't researched who they are, what their mission statement is, what line of business that they do, who their competition is, what their core values are, what their financial health is, things about that company you want to know, because while they're interviewing you, I think you as a candidate should be interviewing them, asking questions. So it's not just about them asking you questions. You should turn the tables and, ask them some really challenging questions as well. So one of the things is being prepared in their interview, making sure doing their research on it a little bit more. It's been the biggest theme. Sometimes they can be a little shallow, but overall they still do pretty well. Just to really go deep, not just knowing the basic information that, we were, we started in 1905. Well, that's general information, but let's go back into deep things. How about that new acquisition, that new product, that merger that's happening? How's that going? How's my job or my role going to impact that? So you have to ask more probing, more thought-provoking questions as a candidate.
Okay. And what's your thinking on candidates connecting with people at the company that they want to work for on LinkedIn, for instance, searching them out, and you don't know them, but connecting to people at the company and asking them about the company culture? What do you think about that?
We tell them to do that as much as possible. Sometimes, you have to take that risk, to reach out to them and take that leap of faith. You might be a little nervous. I don't know this man, or I don't know this woman. What if they don't respond? Well, you did your part. So I tell the students, if you met them at a job fair, you have their business card, or you met them in an interview, you should be following up with them. You should reach out to them even before the interview if you know who they are, and connect with them on LinkedIn, and just keep it light, keep it, easy. Don't have to write a long dissertation out, but just a few words, just expressing, it's great to meet you. You're interested in the company, why you're interested, and just leave it at that. So there's nothing wrong. I do it as a career advisor, employee relations. If it's a company that I want to talk to, like Dell Computer or Facebook, if I know the recruiter, I'll just take that bold move and just reach out to them and ask.
Yeah. And in developing your preparedness for the individual, what should they wear? What do you advise them on how to dress for that interview?
Professional, business professional, always go with more. because you can always take a tie off if it's a casual, but we always teach them to err on the side of being business professional and knowing what business professional is, because some students don't know what that is. Mm-hmm. That suit or that dress may be a nice dress, but it may be more appropriate for a wedding or a party, but not for the office. So knowing what business professional, what business casual looks like, we do that. We have Dress for Success seminars at the university. We have a clothes closet on campus where students can go if they need professional wear, if they need shoes or need a couple of shirts. They're free of charge for our University of Toledo students to go over. We just renovated a room in Student Union, and we've got donations from the community, from faculty and staff, business attire that they can use, they can have to use for their interviews.
Mm-hmm. And so when you say that dress or that suit, delve into that a little bit more just for us. And just, okay. I want to make sure our viewers, walk away with, what do you mean when you say that dress might not go, that might be for the wedding. So give us a better sense of that.
Well, being aware of maybe how short it is, or if it's got the little glitter on it, it's real flashy. Our men, the stilettos, shoes, maybe that's not appropriate for an interview. That might be fine for a Christmas party at your company, but not when you're going into an interview. For our men, the trendy suits with the real skinny legs and the high cut hems, keep it traditional. Keep it traditional. We have examples of pictures that show what business professional, what it looks like, what's appropriate and what is not. So making sure the colors are more traditional, like the blues, black, gray, things like that. Nothing really over the top, flashy, or that's too tight or too big. So just things like that. Your personal grooming is also important. Natural hair colors and conservative hairstyles. You have to go in conservative. Until you can get the role. Okay. Because one thing we see too at the interviews that the hiring manager might come into the interview with jeans and a golf shirt on, but you cannot.
Right.
You have earned that privilege, but you have to come on your A game. So always go with the business professional.
I think that's great advice. Thank you for that. I'm going to go to the comments. I was going to pivot somewhere else, but we're getting some comments both on Facebook and LinkedIn. I'm going to go with Bianca Tellis, and thank you for commenting, Bianca. She's asking, what different streams of income should a person have? Give details and examples, please. Thank you. All right, we're going to come back to that in a second, Bianca. I think we'll work that in. And then Valerie Felder says, can you please describe the resume scanner process? I know resumes go through a scanner. How do we ensure the resume will pass the scanner? So I don't know if you want to take that question.
Yep. Okay.
There are good questions. I think you talk about resume parsing, where some companies have resume parsing. So yes.
Right. We're seeing now that a lot of these companies are coming up with ATS, really smart ATS systems, where they, first of all, the resume has to have those key words in the body of the resume. So when you're looking at the job description of the job you apply, you really need to read it good. You need to really pay attention to what they're asking for, what skills they're looking for, and you need to make sure that those skills are in your resume. And also with the formatting, it's really best to keep a more traditional format, not having the boxes and the colors and the graphs, because the systems, I don't know, various companies, I don't know how far they are with their process and how their intelligence is to read those type of resumes. But when you have it too, quote, fancy, the system may not pick it up and read it correctly. So don't try to be too fancy when you're doing a resume to upload it into an ATS system, applicant tracking system. Now, I can see if you wanted to give it to someone or email an HR person personally, that's fine. But where you're going through the application process, have a more of a standard formatted resume where it makes it easy for the machine to identify it. So it's important to have those key phrases in that resume. If they're talking about leadership, if they're talking about analytics, they're talking about problem solving, you need to make sure that you have those bullet points somewhere within that resume. If not, you may get a rejection note.
Yeah. And I think that's great. And Bianca, I'm just going to add to what Craig is saying, something he mentioned earlier about core values. And so if you go to a website and you're able to see core values, or you're able to see who we are, phrases like that. Delve into some of those keywords and any core competencies that might be listed on a job description or listed overall for groups of positions, and try to summarize those so that you use keywords of those as well, because those would be keywords that they would actually put up as well to make sure that you're aligning with those core competencies for a position. And that should flow through in a good HR process to the kind of questions that they're going to ask. So you're already doing the groundwork for developing your responses to behavior-based interview questions. If you start with the core competencies and core values, you'll be on a good foot, to have your answers as well. Bianca, you want to add anything to that, Craig? I'm sorry.
Well said.
Okay. Bianca, I wanted to go back because I don't know if you were here at the beginning, but something that I hope that you heard, or we'll go back and listen. Craig talked about there being the spark that he got from doing the college campus recruiting. And so the way I'm going to tie this in, Craig went back to school, got his master's degree. Now, Craig could have, and he hasn't shared that, but he works as the college campus advisor, right? He also has a master's, which means that he could teach instructor classes, right?
I'm doing that. I've done that.
A career concierge business on the side. See, that one passion could be many different streams of income if he chose it. So the best advice that I would give you is find where your passion is and see how many ways that you can do different things, not to the point where you're multitasking and not being good at anything, right? But you want to be able to use your core, the things that are core to you and important to you, and things that you really enjoy doing. Craig said earlier he could see himself doing this. So if you see yourself doing something, ask yourself, how can you make that different streams? That would be my advice to you. Craig, what would you say? What different streams of income should a person have? She's asking.
You said it well. Again, with the multiple streams, I've been able to teach on the side to an adjunct instructor. I hopefully get back to doing that next school year. So it opens a lot of doors. You're having, an advanced degree, the credentials to do those things. So definitely, I can't elaborate anymore on what you've already said. You said it perfectly.
Yeah. And Valerie, the same for you. I think Valerie failed her PhD. While you might be searching out that ideal project management position, I'm giving you a shout out there because I know you're looking for that ideal position. You might also consider, hey, maybe I will do some instructing. Maybe doing that instructing as an adjunct professor or guest professor could lead to tenure, or it could lead to speaking engagements. That's another platform. So it could lead to you authoring a book. That's another platform. So you could really use your advanced degrees to help you really pivot, especially during this time, if those things bring you that spark that Craig talked about. If those things are things you say, hey, I could really do this as for a living, those would be the things I would suggest that you pursue as well. So
yep.
Thank you for that. And anybody else, you can drop your questions in the comments. She said, very helpful. Thank you.
Good.
Absolutely. All right. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about because you train them for interviewing. Do you train them on behavior-based interviewing as a part of that interview training?
Correct. Yes.
Talk to us a little bit about that training that you do for candidates, because I find sometimes with I have a millennial who is a daughter niece, and she says, don't lump us all together. So some millennials may not do as well on the behavior-based interviews as you might expect some. And so when I'm talking to young people, I'm gonna call them young people, we talk a lot about the approach to the interview based behavior-based interviewing. So I just want to hear your thoughts and share our thoughts with our viewers about your helping them get prepared for interviews.
Okay. Well, as most companies, their process from that we understand, they do behavioral-based interviewing, as Marcus said, and try to think of it as using the STAR approach when doing it. So they'll ask you a question about, tell me about a time when you had a critical problem that needs to be done. Okay, whatever the question may be, try to answer it using the STAR method: situation, task, action, result. So if you follow that methodology through, because they want to know how well you work through those problems coming up with a solution, ideas, and then what is the result of it at the very end? They may be ask you a question a time that you failed something. So it's not always going to be something wonderful and glamorous, but how do you deal with failure? So let's walk through that situation. One of the things that I try to tell the students is that interviewing is really, this is Craig's philosophy, is storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, you're sharing stories, you're giving details, and you want to try to get, if you can be so descriptive that the people that you're sharing that with, make them feel as if they were in the room when the whole transaction, went down. So think of it, try to be descriptive, use the STAR approach: situation, task, action, result. And usually 9 times out of 10, that takes you right through. It works every time, where you're able to answer the questions appropriately, not answering them in theory, but answering them by giving an example, a specific example that you experienced.
Mm-hmm. I think that's important because don't make up examples. I know sometimes people make up examples, and as you're doing probing in those questions, you learn that, that's not maybe the experience. And what did you do in the situation? Sometimes, right. You'll say, well, my boss did or my colleagues did, but what did you do in the situation that brought about a resolve and things of that nature? So that's great that you're training them on that. Excellent.
My question is, or my one thing that maybe you can help me on, is when some students have come back to me and said, well, Mr. Turner, I've never actually encountered that situation. I really can't think of a time. But then I would come back and say, well, if you honestly feel that you have not encountered whatever that situation is, maybe you could say, well, I have not directly encountered that, but if I did, these are the things that I would do. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's the way to answer that question.
Yeah, you could do it that way, or you could do the closest example. So if you haven't had to make an unpopular decision, you might choose a decision that didn't actually go that well after you made it.
Okay.
You might still tell them how you make decision, what goes into the decision making, and how you accept your responsibility when it didn't went well. Gotcha. So you might lead with saying, I really haven't had an unpopular decision, but let me tell you about the time and tell them about that time. And you write a storytelling. And kind of in the module that I'm putting together, I'm having people think about their core values and using those to draft their responses, so that you're always drawing from your authentic self when you're giving those answers. And then that makes you more comfortable if you're not practicing to be a representative or somebody that you're not. If you go in saying, I'm going to be myself because I'm prepared to give examples and stories about myself, you can pull from that reservoir, if you will, and use a story that's the most relevant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, that's what I typically advise. I typically don't tell people, say, well, I've never experienced that. And they go on to the next question. They're going to mark you down.
Yeah.
But you can be creative and say, I'm not sure that I've had quite that experience, but here's one that's like that. And watch body language. Do hands become closed? Do they start nodding real quickly? For some, that means, okay, wrap it up. For some, that might, be some excitement. So you got to kind of, use your social skills to read the room and determine whether or not, you've landed a good response to the question. So,
yes,
that's what I kind of try to advise anyway. I wanted to ask you as well. You talked a little bit earlier about how how organizations have come to you, some of the employers that are embarking upon a diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Because you do have some minority students. Is there any extra preparedness that you give to them going into organizations?
Well, that is done through the affinity group or the support groups on campus, like the Brothers on the Rise, TALL, the Hispanic. We have some workshops that we do with them. When we have meetings, we'll talk a little bit more in depth on career development things with them as well. They're probably getting it holistically from the classes and from the general things, but we try to customize it down more to that fits, kind of our narrative, if you will.
Got you. And how have you had to pivot in discussions with students and with employers in this COVID environment? I'm sure that's cut down some of the face-to-face, I would imagine. So Do you find that the interaction is the same, different? How have you pivoted?
Well, at the very beginning, early spring, when all of this started, there was some setback with some of the companies and some of the students who had positions or internships that had to be rescinded because with the pandemic, it changed the whole dynamics of the company and what they were doing. And some of the companies were able to save their internship programs, maybe have them do something remote, or perhaps have them start, whether they normally would start in May, maybe have them start late June so they can get something. They had to delay some of the start times, and a lot of it was remote. And maybe some of the students, if they were on an internship, they would maybe work remote 2 days a week and then go into the office 1 or 2 days a week so that you would have an office full of people. So they were flexible in that respect, that they were able to make it work. We had a few, like I said, that weren't able to keep their internship. That was disappointing, but they were able to find something else.
Mm-hmm. And as it relates to career fairs and job fairs, how have you pivoted in that regard to still match people up with employers if that's a part of, your pivot?
Well, my office, we are almost virtual in all the things that we do. We do mock interviews where we have the employers come and practice with interviews with the students, but that's all virtually done. Our job fair this past semester, fall semester, was a virtual job interview or job fair, which everything was done completely virtual. It was a very interesting process going through all of that. We were nervous, but it turned out exceptionally well. We had hundreds of students who attended. We had a lot of employers who were engaged online. So everything was done just like you and I are talking, where the student and the employer was actually doing an interview as if we're doing. So
wow.
They adjusted really well with this. And a lot of our young people are very adept with technology anyway. So it wasn't as difficult for them as it was with maybe some of the employers who are used to the old school way of face-to-face, in which I like the old school way too, but this is a change.
Yeah, I was going to ask as a follow-up to that, what was your sense in interacting that way with employers and students? Because 100 people, and I will guess that you use breakout rooms, maybe
Correct.
in Zoom or something like that, and had them go one-on-one. But what was the overall energy and sentiment, and how did you gauge that?
It went well. I mean, there was a few technical hiccups, of course. We have to perfect this thing, and we see that this might be the norm for a while. Even if quote things get back to normal, maybe employers might want to do this, more because for some reasons it might be better for them to do it virtually because it saves on travel and different things like that. The students, there wasn't a lot of kickback or pushback, just some technical things that we have to work through and making sure that it's working properly. And because this is something we've never done fully before. So we had to kind of allow ourselves a little space for quote error. And then we saw what those errors were, if you will, and we're making the corrections and make sure that, that it runs smoothly the next time. So I'm sure that our career fair in February will be even better than the one we had in September.
So you are planning forward that you will do more virtual career fairs and events. Do you think that that's going to be a stay forever, or you think, what are your thoughts on that?
My personal hope that it doesn't, because I like that. I love the energy of them being on campus, the job fairs being on campus where all of the students are in the arena, the energy there. I'm hoping that it will get back to that, and I'm believing that it will. But it may be some type of a hybrid moving forward where, as I said, if the employers feel that, well, we're still getting really good results on doing it this way, we're going to continue to do it this way. But we just have to find a way to convince them that they still should come on campus because we like their presence.
Yeah. I want to pivot slightly and talk to you a little bit about some of our viewers who may not have identified or connected with that spark, Craig. So they don't know exactly what it is that fills them up or that they feel like they could do every day. And then there are those who want to pivot from the work that they're doing now. I just want to tap into some of the advice that you will give someone who isn't on a career path at all and just doesn't really know what first steps to take to determine, okay, should I go to school? Should I go back to school? Should I how do I determine what my passion is? How do I get connected to that spark? And then someone who is in a role now and it's not fulfilling, it is not driving them out of the bed to get to the computer. It is a task for them. They want to pivot and do something differently. What advice would you give to those groups of people, or do you give to them?
Okay. Well, what I ask is that, look at honestly, what is it that you like naturally? What is it that comes easy to you, or naturally, a second sense, if you will, second nature, if you will? Those things that you like, it could be in your everyday life. Do you like to cook? I mean, do you like art? Whatever that is that comes easy to you, or it seems to be natural to you, 9 times out of 10, that we believe that kind of drives, or at least puts you in the path of finding your career. So just look at yourself honestly, don't make it harder than it is. Just look at what it is that you naturally like to do, or that you have natural abilities and inclinations to do. So that's one way that we do it. The other way that we do it at the university is we have 2 career development courses that are required in the College of Business. And during these 2 classes, you will take a series of assessments, and that helps to determine, like, you're answering questions, and it helps to determine kind of what your values are. Or if you're a person that likes to talk and you like to be out there in front, that kind of determines maybe that'd be a great salesperson, or a great speaker, or a great communications major or something. Or that individual that really likes math, they like to be in the back room. They don't like to be all in front of everybody. They're content with working on a project or doing research. Perhaps maybe something in the information systems career would be a good fit for you. Or if you love people, you have a passion for people and helping people and developing them, maybe human resources. So it's just looking at what you like naturally and see how that can equate to take finding the right career path.
And then would you suggest that they find a mentor in that area? Should they go take a couple of classes? What would you suggest once they identify, okay, I've got a natural inclination for people. I'm not sure if that's human resources, customer service, marketing, but what would you suggest for them to further develop it, pursue it, kind of flesh it out?
Absolutely. Yes. Find that mentor, or if there's a particular job that maybe you're interested in, like marketing or HR, ask if you can come spend a day at the office and shadow with that individual, like a couple of hours, if you're allowed to do that, depending on, if you're not going to be exposed to classified information, of course. But if there's an opportunity to job shadow, and some of our students have done that, job shadowed at companies and things like that, to really determine what they like to do. This is why it's so important we tell the students to try to get an internship, because an internship is not only to determine what you like, sometimes you find out what you don't like in an internship. We've had students who've done internships and they come back to Mr. Turner, I hated it. I mean, the people were great. It wasn't what I thought it was. So they have to go back to the drawing board and make the changes that they need. And that's perfectly okay. You go to that internship and it quite wasn't what you thought it was going to be. And it's okay to say, well, no, I think I made a mistake in this area. I'm going to change, make the adjustment, and you'll come out just fine.
That's a great idea. Try to get an internship, get a mentor. What about some classes? Do you think that they should pursue some classes or do the others first?
Well, it can be a combination of both. The class piece, you have to be careful, because once you take those classes, and we don't want you to waste your resources in a class that you failed or that you don't feel like you're getting anything out of. But getting that mentor or doing those job shadows are really, really good. I think if you can get those at the outset, that really can help you with your choices. This is why we have the career development courses before you declare your major at the University of Toledo College of Business. Those classes are before you declare your major, so you're not doing any damage. So you can find out, okay, what do I really want to do? And then those 2 classes can assist you in pointing you in the right direction as to what career path or what major you want to go in.
Got it. And it may be local or regional or national, but do you have any information around the careers that you've seen that seem to be in demand or in higher demand maybe than others? And again, I know it could be regionally, it could be locally, it could be nationally.
Okay. Well, we have a strong placement. Our placement rate at the College of Business at UT Toledo is, we've been for the past 4 or 5 years about 90%. 90% of our college graduates from the College of Business have gained full-time employment in their major, and 85% of the students during their time at the school have gained at least one internship. So, but that said, I think that we see a lot of the accounting majors have really come out well. The finance have come out well. Really, all of our majors, honestly, and I'm not just saying that, we have the data to prove it, that all of our business majors, whether it's accounting, whether it's finance, whether it's HR, whether it's information systems, supply chain is a big one. You know, we have Amazon and that's taken over the whole area, the whole planet, you know, and they've been hiring a lot of our students for like the supply chain and for HR jobs, and they're coming out really well. Very, very nice salaries.
Wonderful. That is great. And so you may not have meant that to be a plug for UT, but I'm sure that there are people who might be considering where they might be continuing their collegiate journey. And so are there fully online classes? Are people still coming in person to class? What's the environment there at UT?
It's been a hybrid. There are some on campus classes, and then some of the classes are remote where they have to tune in, or then they have online. So it's just a hybrid of everything right now. So a combination. So they're trying to accommodate as much as we can for our demographics and then the situation that we're in, of course.
Yeah. And so people that might be interested, they could go and do an application and they could select to be online 100% for most programs, or does it depend?
It determines what the availability and the major. So they would have to, you know, inquire in that, but there's some possibilities, I'm sure. We're still working through all of those things too, to really make sure that it's a well-ran, you know, machine right now in light of what we're going through.
Okay. I want to ask you 2 more questions as we come to 7 minutes before the hour. One of them is, what is your passion? What is your passion?
My passion is the success of others. I said that a little earlier, that when the students come in after, you know, 2-3 years of we working together and helping them with interviews and resumes and all of those career development things, to see them develop into these really outstanding professionals. You know, I really get a joy out of seeing others succeed and seeing them to develop into, you know, the people that we believe they are to be. And that keeps me going in this role, is just to see their success and see that they're getting it. And when they come back, you know, just to say thank you, you know, that what you did for me, you know, helped, made a difference.
And then I think this is my last question, but
okay.
What's the biggest lesson that you've learned? And I want you to turn it in a way that it is advice that you would give to someone else because of that big lesson that you've learned. What's the biggest lesson that you've learned around career or passion that you would turn around and give as advice to someone else?
Well, I got a couple, but when it comes to mine now, well, never say never what you won't do. Honestly, years ago, God knows, I didn't think I would be doing the things that I would be doing now, be in the place I would be now, teaching classes at a university, meeting wonderful people, wonderful students, developing them. First of all, you know, never underestimate yourself saying what you won't do or what you can't do. You know, we know that, you know, I think there's greatness in all of us, you know, to some degree. So we just have to tap into that greatness and take those leaps of faith and step out and do it. And I'm seeing that now. Sometimes I just look around and I'm like, wow, did I just do that? You know, and if you told me years ago that, oh, you'd be teaching at a university doing the things you are doing, I probably would have said, oh, please, yeah, right. But so never say never. The other thing too is what I've learned too, your career path, as I said earlier, is never a straight line. It's never a straight path all the time. So you're going to have to take those turns and those dips to get to where you're supposed to be. So those are a few little tips that, and the last thing too is I say to students too is that finding work or a job is a job itself. That takes a lot of effort. Okay, so you get out of it what you put into it. So nobody's going to come to you and say, "Here's a job for you, paying you $100,000 a year." It doesn't work that way. So don't dismiss that attitude of entitlement. Yes, maybe you are smart, maybe you did work hard, but so did that other 200 people that are applying for that same job might have been in the same boat as you. So,
and so for the never say never, when did you know that you had learned that lesson? Did something specific happen? At what point in your journey did you know you had learned that lesson? Never say never.
I think that was when I started graduate school. Because those words came back, my own words came back to me as I said to myself within myself, and maybe even said it to a few friends, I'm not going back to school for nobody. And then before I know it, I'm sitting here with my books for graduate school and I'm in the classroom. And then reality hit me that, okay, I said I wouldn't. Now I'm doing what I said that I wouldn't do.
And what made you, Craig, go back to school? What was the catalyst for you going back?
I saw there was opportunities and there were some things that I believe my boss kind of threw some hints down to me, some things that she wanted me to do. And as far as maybe doing some course instruction and things like that. And I saw the opportunities there. And, working in a field of higher education, it's really credentialing is very important. So even though I had the knowledge, work experience on doing it, I could do it, but you have to have certain credentials behind your name in order to. That's just the way higher education works. You might have experiential knowledge, but I needed to have the degree knowledge to back that. So that's kind of what propelled me to go back and get the graduate degree. And, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. It was a quick 2 years and that was it.
Okay. Now that was number one. Tell me number two again. You had one was never say never. Number two was
is that your career path is not always a straight.
Not always a straight line. When did you know that? When did you know that for sure?
Well, I see that looking back now from back when I first started my first job at Owens Corning to now 2020 and things I'm doing, it's just all over the place, really. And that's not a bad thing that you just jump, but it's different building blocks to move you up. And it's not always, like I said, a straight path.
Yeah. Would you have approached something differently had you known that back then, knowing that you're going to go in different places or maybe not a straight line?
Well, maybe I would have been done with school a lot sooner, maybe even had the terminal degree by now. But that's, yeah.
Yeah. And the third thing was
that sometimes finding work is work itself.
Yeah.
It takes some effort and some, you just can't, people are not going to just hand you a job. You have to go out there. And the networking piece is big. It's not what you know, but really it's who you know, but even further, who knows you is what another thing that I really instill into our students. It's not about how much book knowledge you have. It's really about connections. Career, in my opinion, is really you can learn how to write a resume. You can learn how to do interviews, but it's how well are you connected with people?
Yeah.
How the relationships that you have with other professionals is what I'm learning.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think your net worth is the value of your network, right? And that's what you have to really increase the value of. That's how you increase your net worth of opportunities, by increasing the value of your network. I really believe that. So
absolutely.
Wonderful, wonderful. It's 1 o'clock. I am so glad we had the concierge himself. And so if people want to ask more questions of you, I know you are on LinkedIn. Is there a preferred platform that they can reach out to you on? How should they reach out to the career concierge?
You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm out there on LinkedIn. You can also just email me directly at craig.turner@utoledo.edu. That's Craig, CRAIG .Turner, TURNER @utoledo.edu. The information is out on the flyer I think Marcus put out on Facebook. So you can reach out to me even on Facebook. It doesn't matter. So I'm on all of those social media platforms pretty regularly. So I look forward to hearing from you.
Okay. And if people want to apply to the University of Toledo, when is the next semester window for which they can apply and go through the process?
Oh, for school?
For school.
Right now. So January 19th, the spring semester starts. So they probably need to be doing that today now, or at least looking into it. It's not too late, but they need to get the ball rolling today because there's a process and you have to follow the protocol. So
Okay.
I can help you with that, but you just follow the steps.
Okay. All right. Craig Turner, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing from your passion around careers and what you said, helping to develop people and helping others to become a success. I love that that is your passion. It is not about you. And typically the real significant passion is never really about us, right? It's about what's beyond us, and that's helping others. So
Right.
I'm very pleased to have had this time with you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thanks so much. And thank you for viewing on YouTube events, Twitch TV, Facebook, and of course on LinkedIn Live. We're with Craig Turner. I hope that you will share this and watch it with others so that you will be ignited to sit in the center of your passion. What is your passion? And are you living in the center of it? I hope that you will. If you're not, after today, have a grateful day.
Right.